You will see people coming from the woodwork talking about how their family or they ran away from this country who had socialism or communism, which is not the same thing, and say that this is why New York City is gonna have like a tough time. When in fact, that cannot be equated. And I'm so tired of fucking people coming from other countries and then instead of actually looking up our fundamentals, which has elements of socialism, fear-mongering what their own country. You came to the United States, maybe you learn a little thing about it, right? Instead of trying to fear-monger with how your country was. Because Cuba was communist, but obviously there was a bigger shift in what occurred, and a big reality of it was the United States getting involved in Cuba, destabilizing it and positioning all of that wealth to the top, right? So obviously there was a switch up that wasn't perfect in how they responded, but ultimately it was a regaining of the power that was lost through foreign influence, right? It has happened all throughout because the United States has used democracy in order to destabilize countries. But it's funny because the United States is not a pure democracy, which means that we ourselves are not established within a democracy that is absolute and capable of going to other countries and saying you should be like us, because we're making them be something that isn't even like us, because we have the electoral college. That's not democracy. We have a system that promotes a shift between like democracy and republicanism, federalism. We have switches. So the fact that we centered on democracy to destabilize countries is why they switched up a certain way, right? And then we have to acknowledge that there is a difference between political theory and actual practice. The practice cannot really be criticized in regards to the theory, because the theory can be good as long as it's aligned with, right? Or maybe it cannot. It depends on what country you are. I can only talk about the United States of America. The constitutionalism has elements of socialism. It is not compatible with communism. This isn't my critique of communism. This is just within our fundamentals. Is it possible? But socialism is within our capabilities, right? Democratic socialism is. But you will have people being like, in Soviet Russia, this isn't Soviet Russia. Soviet Russia, communist, which again, we are not compatible with. Communism and socialism are distinct, just like capitalism and libertarianism is distinct. Capitalism can be utilized as a means to an end, that is the public good. And our American constitutionalism, capitalism is a means to a socialist end. That is the public good. The public good, not the government good, right? And this is the reality. When it comes to the budget, they want to remove from the bottom to put to the top. That's every single authoritarian shift has done that. Even Mexico. Why do you think Mexico has shifted to much more socialist, realities? Because they had a 70-year conservative, neoliberal perfect dictatorship, because it wasn't, when people think of what this administration wants, they think they want DT forever. No, they want MAGA forever. What Mexico did with the PRI for 70 years was that they had different presidents, right? They had unfair elections, so they would win across all three branches, and they kept like that for 70 years. But it was democratic because there was a vote. The vote didn't matter, but there was a vote. That's more like what we're going to have, right? And that reality, Mexico, because they understood the legacy of that specific fucking dictatorship, which was, a removal of the money from the bottom and a placement to the top, right? That created the CETELs. Why do you think someone would want to be in a CETEL? Because there's no other opportunities around you. There's a whole economy with it, right? And there's reality, those shifts in political theory of the country, and depending on how maximum you have it, can lead to the reality in which the people within that country associate those distinct characteristics with harm, right? And that's valid because that's harm from your country. But when you're coming to the United States, you cannot say, hey, I hate socialism because I had that in Cuba or Soviet Union, so I don't want it here. It doesn't matter if you don't want it here. The United States Constitution is what dictates what we have here. So maybe read it up, learn it, study our American fundamentals instead of positioning your Cuban actual politics here, because this is the United States, all right? This is the United States. I don't come here and say, hey, I want the PRI. Hey, I want, Putin as president. I don't say any of that because this is the United States. I want a government who serves the American people. I don't want a government who serves Israel. I don't want a government who serves only the rich. I want a government who serves and does its duty to take care of the people it's mandated to. Our founding fathers, when in the Federalist Papers, positioned that the United States of America is supposed to be founded on constitutional balance. That is a distinction between, let's say, you have capitalism, you also have socialism, you have, federalism, you have republicanism, you have democracy, you have all of these because they believed that theory too extreme was tyranny, and we're seeing that in real time. A conservative theory too extreme leads to tyranny, right? So what we have to push is this, capitalism should be a means to an end. That should be the means to an end of socialism. That is the public good of the people. Now, that shouldn't be controversial because that isn't positioning, let's change our political theory. It is within our political theory because people don't want to read it. That's why they just assume and they write on ChatGPT. When I fought with ChatGPT, because it tried to tell me that we have checks and balances, which we all know, we've been told it in civics, right? But ultimately, when you look at the fundamentals, when you look at how we're working, we do not, because who checks Congress? Only Congress can check Congress. You're going to say the people, but how is that codified? It's really not, or else, elections would be protected, which means that no one checks Congress but Congress. Even ChatGPT had to admit that I was right, because ultimately you cannot tell me that 2 plus 2 is 4 and then tell me that 2 plus 2 is 5. No, I'm not recreating the wheel here. I just read the guidelines, so you can't lie to me. You cannot bullshit me. In this reality, we are compatible with socialism. Are we compatible with communism? No, not right now. Are we compatible with libertarianism, which is what's happening within this governmental, neoliberal conservative party? No, we are not, because that is maximum capitalism, which leads to tyranny, and we're seeing that in real time, right? In this reality, I don't give a fuck where you fleed from Cuba, from whatever the fuck it is. I don't care. This is the United States of America. Reshift to our actual fundamentals and don't bring in your fear-mongering from another fucking country in order to restrict our capabilities to succeed as a country, to succeed as a people. Because the fact that we're wasting so much money to cover the top and leaving the bottom vulnerable is the reality that what's happening is the karma of what we've been creating in other countries, right? And this reality, what we have to acknowledge is that by centering the American people, as Zohran did, that's how we move forward. That's how we reclaim our party. And that's how we create an America that is actually thriving for the people, because this government thinks that the purpose of government is to help themselves, right? To help their friends. But ultimately, it is to help the people. The fact is that we keep putting in people as elected members who are ambassadors to corporations, who are ambassadors to their donors, who are ambassadors to foreign countries. But what about the ambassadors of America? And Zohran is one. And that's our thing. We have to have more Zohran. A lot of people were like, oh, but he doesn't have the name recognition. He's not going to win because people aren't going to want to have him. And look now. I don't know if it's official, but it seems like New York City has just taught us a fucking lesson to not self-reject. Because that's the thing with fucking Democrats, is that we self-reject. And we're like, well, it's not going to win. In California, it happens, We had one that was a step towards much more housing affordability. But people were like, well, it doesn't fix the problem, so I'm not going to vote for it. How fucking stupid are you? How fucking stupid are you? Minimum wage increase? Well, if I vote for it, the prices of the cost is gonna go up. It's gonna go up anyways. They're using that in order to influence your vote. You see? And that's the thing. We have to center our power, because that's now what we do. We center our fear. And centering our fear, we have not won. So let's center hope. Let's center transformation, because that's what Zohran was, and he won.